Welcome back, everybody. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. I am making additional videos, as I had promised, on what is essentially, for me, a rare machine. I've never seen one, never had one, until my recent acquisition, which many of you are going to be seeing, if you haven't already, in a video I made. And this, of course, is the Anker, A-N-K-E-R, RZ, and it is a German machine that it uses a class 15 bobbin, but it is both a straight and a zigzag machine, and it's a fairly early design when it comes to zigzag models. And because it's new to me, I just kind of wanted to document and kind of maybe take all of you along with me as I try to explore and understand the machine, because even though I've been overhauling sewing machines for 9 years now, if my count is correct, that doesn't mean I know the routes of every machine, because there's a first time for everything. So I've never seen an Anker. There are many aspects of this machine that are not surprising, right? There are, I believe, there is an online PDF manual that is helpful. But essentially, this machine has levers and knobs. We'll go explore together as we go through this. But for this video, I wanted to kind of show all of you what was inside the top of the machine. Now, I've mentioned before with other machines that one of the ways you can tell what I like to call an heirloom quality vintage machine versus some of those that were made later in the 70s, although there are exceptions, of course, is how accessible is the machine for basic maintenance. When I say basic, I'm talking about lubrication. Now, this machine has sat for quite a while. It was kept indoors. It's in lovely shape aesthetically. But I always, as I've mentioned before, I always treat every machine, no matter how beautiful or homely it may appear, that all of them need to get full servicing because they have sat for a very long time. Now, if you're new to sewing machines, you may be new to this idea, but the way you know what I call an heirloom quality machine is that you can get to it, right? So this machine took a cue from an Italian design. The Necchi company, for some of its machine, had these little spring-loaded, I don't know, they're like little, I don't know if they're valves, but they're basically little spring-loaded covers for the oiling holes that prevent dust from going there. Is it a necessity? No. The Singers don't have them, but that's okay. So I'm just, I've got the machine and I'm going around looking for places where I can add oil. Now, normally, as I've mentioned to many of you in the past, for normal maintenance, when you have a machine that's running well, it is not being restored, 1 drop of oil is all you need at each oiling point. You will sometimes see me add 2, 3 drops or more when a machine is dry, when it has sat for many years, and it simply is way overdue for servicing. So the fact that you see me put a little more than 1 drop, that is not normal. Don't do that for your normal oiling. Let's see, we have 2 spool pins, and if you look closely at this, some of you who have Singer featherweights might recognize this type of feature. There's a screw here, and then there's like a little nub on the underside. I'm going to zoom in here so you guys get a better picture. There's like a little dimple, when I say dimple like on a domino, right? And so it simply protrudes underneath the plate, and it sort of seats in this little hole here. It's not a screw, just kind of a holder. 1 screw here. I think there we go. Now you can see that screw. I loosened it just enough, and then I can take this plate and it will pivot out of the way. And of course, this was designed this way so that you could get access, right? Now, what you are looking at, I've never seen the inside of one of these either, so we'll do it together. What we're seeing is the mechanicals inside the Anker. Just from the way I'm touching the hand wheel, causing this movement, it's very heavy. So there's a lot of heavy gauge, beautiful steel here. Now, I've mentioned to you that some of the European companies over the years began very slowly to replace steel with plastic. It was very unfortunate. The Pfaff company did it, Bernina did it, and their machines were wonderful, but they were trying to prevent outsourcing. And some of those machines, particularly those in the 60s, you'll see where they use nylon, and you have to be real careful with those. I've never had an Anker before, and so I thought I'd show you guys. If you're not sure, you know, gears get dirty and you really can't tell all the time. This is a little telescoping magnet. It has a magnet on the end, and you know, if it's steel or iron, if it's a ferrous metal, you'll know. So I'm going to get the light back on here. See if you guys can see that. I'm going to take my little telescoping magnet, and if it sticks, and it sure does, you know, you could hit it, tapped right over there. So I know that gear is steel. Inspecting here, there's a gear below this that it correlates with, and it appears to be steel. I don't see any plastic below. I'm seeing a metal reflection down there. You guys may not be able to see that. I apologize. It's kind of an odd angle to get. So I'll show you again. This is when you're overhauling a machine, the first thing you want to do is kind of look at it, check it out, see what's what. See, is something moving? Is anything stuck? I am not forcing this. In fact, this machine was, it may have been 10 years ago it was used, and it has not lost all of its lubrication. It's moving quite well, and I've only just put a few drops in the upper region there. So here, I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to be putting some oil on some of the moving parts here. And again, as I've mentioned in the past, while I almost always tell people, please only use 1 drop of oil, when you're overhauling a machine that has sat for many years, you want to be a little more generous with the oil, because the machine is dry. This one's not bone dry, but still. And that oil is important, because remember, sewing machines, unless you're dealing with some of the industrial models, don't have oil reservoirs, right? The oil sits between the moving parts until it basically gets used up, and then you add new oil. Now, you remember, here is the gear that I was showing you guys testing with the magnet. It's here. It's going to get grease, but I'm going to put on the side of the gear, there's a place where there's a metal sleeve that's moving up against. And you can see here, I put 1 drop there. Now I'm going to get my grease. And I may have mentioned this before, when you're greasing gears, unless you have gears that are housed in a little box, which you will sometimes find on the bottom of some sewing machines, you don't flood the gears with grease, right? Because the gear can only hold so much grease. Let's zoom back in, let you guys get a little bit closer up view of what I'm doing here. So I'm going to I've just got the grease on the end of a cotton swab. Make sure your cotton swabs are high quality, or you can use something else that's small. You don't want to get any cotton fibers in your gear. That would not be pleasant. Now you'll notice I just kind of dabbed it on there, right? Not a massive amount. Now I'm going to take the hand wheel, I'm going to turn, and that turning is going to get the grease down below on the gear that's coming in contact with this one. And I'm going to basically just check it out, make sure that it's got grease all the way around. But again, all you need is a bead right in the center of the gear, and you don't have to flood it, because the gear teeth, they can only hold so much. And grease, unlike oil, I've had people ask me this before. With grease, you don't need to apply grease nearly as often as you do oil. Grease tends to stay put for longer periods. Nothing is forever, and grease can also harden up over many years, and you do need to reapply it occasionally. So there you go. I've just greased the this primary gear up here, and of course it's kind of interesting because there's another piece that's part of this mechanism, and I don't know if it's going to show up here, but there's for lack of a better word, a cam that's shaped like those 2 fingers of mine, and it's holding onto this roller, and I am going to put a little grease there, and then that will be that as far as lubricating this upper portion of the machine. Many machines you will have, if they're heirloom and you have access, you're going to have an upper portion to service, lubricate, as well as down below. So it's important to try to remember that. You're going to have different areas of the machine, and I often try to break it down to that so people can you can work on one section of the machine at a time instead of trying to feel like you have to do the whole thing and get it done at once. Let's see, anything else to pay attention to up top? Now, I just turned the machine around so you guys could see in from the other side. Up top here, you will see a place where the drive shaft moves. If I can get the light out of your way there, the drive shaft is moving right up against the side steel of the machine. There's a bearing in there or a sleeve, but I want to put a little bit of oil there from this side, doing it from the inside, right? So you can see, I think you can see. Sometimes seeing on the inside of a sewing machine is kind of an odd thing, and believe me, trying to put it on a camera or there we go, is even stranger. Let's see if I can pull this off. So I want you to see where I'm putting this. Basically where that shaft meets the side of the machine there. When I come here and look, we'll now look on the back of the machine. I'm going to turn it around again. Okay guys, so I have turned the machine around to the back side. Now up here, where I was moving this plate around, there's no hole in the top of the plate. There is one here, and I can put oil here. It's an oiling point for sure. But one of the things I like to do is remove the back plate, which you guys, many of you will recognize if you have machines like this. There's a back plate, and that's a service area. And what I like to do is come back and take a good look at what's back here so that I can go in, and if you're not sure, you know, the manual may not always tell you this, but you will notice that there are pieces of metal sliding against each other, and if there's no hole above, that's not a problem. Put one drop. In this case, I'm putting a few, right? Because I've got metal moving against metal. And again, these are areas of the machine that might have residual lubrication, but you really want to be able to get things lubricated because you don't know how long, again, the machine has been serviced, even if it was used. Here, I've got some pieces. Let's see if this is even showing up for all of you. I'm going to move this here. Bear with me. There we go. Over in the front, I can see my stitch length regulator. And again, it's don't expect it to be moving too easily because it needs tension. But there are pieces where you have metal moving with metal, and that's what we want to take a look at. And over here, you can see, I'm going to try one more time to show you guys where I was pointing. It's right here where that shaft meets the side of the machine there, and I just, again, put in a drop there to give it a drink of oil. It hasn't had any long time. I have up above one more hole right here, and you'll see them when you're looking down on the machine, and that is going to help me with the hub of where my hand wheel goes. And if a little bit of oil gets on the body, don't worry, that's going to help you clean and polish it anyway. So that is essentially what I've done with lubricating the upper areas of the machine. I can swing over here. Always check the back of your machine. You may have other areas. Right now, I just want to get a little dust out of there. When you see an opening in a machine, it is often there because someone at some point may need to get access for service. And once we take the side plate off over here on the right, that's when we'll be able to see better about what needs to be lubricated on the side. But that's basically what I wanted to show all of you today was, you know, you're going to lubricate. There are different ways to do this, right? But when I'm looking at restoring a machine, giving it a full overhaul, you can start in different areas. It depends on where you want to start. I often start at the top here, make sure that I've cleaned. I'm not going to put oil in the side until I've opened it and making sure there's no dust. I want to get dust and dirt out, because once you put oil in there with dust and dirt, you have quite a nasty pudding mess that you don't really need. So anyway, just wanted to show this to you all. This is the beginning, or the next stage, of my restoring the old Anker here. I'm very curious to see how it's going to run. Of course, the motor was made in Canada. Many European machines from this period, if you see them, and even Japanese machines from the period, you will notice that their motors and the electrical parts were often sourced once they got the machine head, the main body, to North America. And that was true in many markets, because they weren't not necessarily making things for North American electrical standards that early. They would later on, but not early on. So that's, if you ever see this, it doesn't mean you don't have the original motor. I restored one of those wonderful Bernina 117 models once, and it had a motor in a matching color, but it wasn't made in Switzerland like the machine was. So don't let that surprise you. Anyway, there you go, guys. That's the next video on this Anker machine. Never had one. It's kind of cool to explore a machine you've never touched before. But stay tuned. I'll be making more videos, and I'll try to take you guys through as best I can in terms of what I'm doing to get the machine ready. And then once I've completed the overhaul, it will go back into that wonderful cabinet that it came in, that cabinet that must weigh 2 tons. If that's a measure of quality, it sure is high quality. Thank you for watching, everyone. Stay tuned, more videos coming out. And if you own an Anker or have ever heard of one, let me know, because they may not be rare in other parts of the world. Maybe in Europe they're not, but in North America they're far and few between. Take care.